Hi, welcome to VNN. We have with us today Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, or popularly known as just as Nate. He is the Liberal Member of Parliament for Beaches, East York, and has been elected 3 times since 2015. That shows a lot of grassroots support. He is known as an advocate for low-income workers, and his demand to treat drug use as a health issue is a deserving social one. We all know that he has an independent streak, which we all admire. Welcome to Vienna, Nate.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I mean, 7 years in Parliament, and you have seen the fading away of the Liberal Party of Ontario. I mean, is that why you say that the Ontario Liberals need serious renewal?
There's no question that I have watched incredible progress of federal liberals at the same time as we've watched really difficult times for provincial liberals. And it wasn't always that way. I got involved 10 years ago, and the federal party, for those who remember, was in third place. We needed serious renewal at that time, and we had a very frustrating conservative majority government. And all of the parallels apply at the provincial level right now. And so for me, that core question that motivates me, I was a lawyer before politics, and I got involved in politics to make the biggest difference that I can. And there's no bigger difference to make right now than at the provincial level.
That's true. And so when you say when you're speaking of say generational change, I mean, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?
So we have a situation right now where in Ontario, many people didn't vote, and many young people don't see politics the way that I do, which is the most important way to make a difference in the lives of those around us. The core issues of the day, whether people don't have a family doctor, whether people don't have access to affordable housing, whether they fall through cracks in our social safety net, all of the core issues that matter to us in our day-to-day lives are addressed through politics. But what do a lot of people see in politics? They see attacks. They see, I would say, not so substantive policy discussion. They see cheap political attacks and talking points. And I think we trust in our democracy, trust in our politics is certainly at a low point. And when I look at this idea of generational change, we saw 10 years ago a renewal and rebuilding of our federal party where we brought in a sense of generational change. There were people like me, I was 29 at the time when I started running in a nomination and ultimately successfully. And we really rebuilt our party, one, with a positive sense of politics, two, with a sense of generational change and bringing young people into our politics. And that doesn't mean that I was in Guelph yesterday and I met young liberals there. I also met with many long-standing liberal volunteers. There's a place for everyone in this party, but we need to grow this party in a serious way. And I think we grow it by bringing new, energetic young people into this party as much as possible.
So, do you think the young people are sort of more happy with the current dispensation, and that's why they don't want to go to vote? And is that it?
I don't think it's a happiness. I think it is a
Apathy?
sense that it doesn't matter. And my vote doesn't count and my vote doesn't matter. And I don't see any party taking seriously housing affordability. And I don't see any party taking seriously environmental protections. And I don't see any party taking seriously access to mental health care and treating mental health as health care. I don't see any party taking the core issues that matter so much to us, the cost of living challenges, not only housing, but beyond. And so I think there's a certain apathy that sets in that we have to combat. And we have to remind everyone, if you want better from our politics, and I think I want better from our politics, I know many people do, then the answer is participation. And now is the time to get involved to build something better.
I mean, whom do you blame for the free fall of the Liberals in Ontario? I mean, did it start during the McGuinty era and then picked up speed, during the Kathleen Wynne years?
It's a good question. I have to say, I haven't exactly turned my mind to this question of blame, and I'm more interested in how do we go about fixing it. But if I'm fairly assessing the situation, I think it was a combination of factors. And I do think we got away from our grassroots. We allowed volunteer engagement and volunteerism atrophied in the party. It takes a lot of intentional active effort to maintain a grassroots connection, maintain volunteer engagement, especially when one is in government. I even see at the federal level, we've been in power for the last 7.5 years. There isn't the same excitement now than there was at the beginning, and that happens over the course of the life of a governing party. And when you have a provincial party that was in power for 15 years under the Ontario Liberal Party, there are bound to be certain decisions that frustrate different communities along the way. and those governing wears on parties in that way. There's a natural progression of things where parties make a huge impact, and we can point to full day kindergarten or phasing out of coal-fired electricity. But certain decisions catch up to them, and then a new government comes in. I think we see with the Ford government, decisions are catching up to them even more quickly in some ways, given the state of our healthcare system, the state of our education system, the lack of affordable housing. And then it's up to us, not just to be the not Doug Ford party. If we're the not Doug Ford party, we're going to lose every election. We have to be a really strong Liberal party that stands for competence, stands for compassion, stands for integrity, and has a really positive vision about what we want to do for this province.
From what we hear and see among the people, it's Ford, Premier Ford still remains a very popular leader in Ontario.
He does, and that's why I think it's really important to pull apart a sense of personal popularity, because look, it's very important to have a charismatic leader. And Doug Ford has a certain charisma to him. Doug Ford swallows a bee and he makes people laugh. Doug Ford gets a cheap haircut and it's appealing. Look, Doug Ford, when he was getting that,
man, yeah,
and that's real. My brother is not overly political. When not Doug Ford, but when Rob Ford was mayor of Toronto, my brother called him up. Rob Ford called him back. They spoke for 15 minutes about the Toronto Maple Leafs, nothing to do with politics. And my brother would have voted for Rob Ford for a very long time. And so there is that personal ability to connect with people is really important in politics. Doug Ford is a very friendly uncle. He is not competent, though. And even people who like Doug Ford know that he is not competent. And when you have the largest healthcare system in this country, when you have the largest province in this country, over 14 million people, where so many big challenges that exist, and we could show real leadership to deliver for all of this country as the largest province, do we have the competence at Queen's Park that we deserve? I don't think so. And so it's up to us to say, not to attack him personally. I think he's a friendly guy. I think he's a charismatic guy, but to say we deserve better from our politics and we deserve more seriousness, competence, and compassion in our politics. And what really matters to me in politics is honesty and integrity. We need people to trust. If I say I'm going to do something, people need to trust that I'm going to do that thing.
Because today I think many unions are also supporting Premier Ford. It wasn't some years.
You have just touched on a really important point. We have not been a Liberal Party that builds things. I spoke to a constituent who should have voted Liberal, I would say. He works in the trades. His wife is a nurse. He voted Conservative. Why did he vote Conservative in this past provincial election? Because his view, he works in the trades, and his view was there was only one party that was going to build infrastructure and create jobs. And we need to, as an Ontario Liberal Party, need to be a party that's going to build infrastructure, build housing. We need to be the party that has a strong economic agenda that's going to create jobs. And if we don't own that economic space, that space of being a party that wants to build things and get things done, then we are going to struggle. And I think Doug Ford very smartly has cast the Conservative Party as a party that wants to build infrastructure. And look, I'm not going to attack building infrastructure. It's a good thing. I am going to attack the fact that he went to war with education workers, the fact that he suggested using the notwithstanding clause on more than one occasion, the fact that he is building and paving over the Greenbelt, the fact that he is well behind, he talks a big game on housing, but he is well behind the housing starts that we actually need to deliver affordability. So there are ways of credibly analyzing his record and pointing out flaws and saying we can do better and we deserve better. I do think the drive-by attack of tearing him down and stop Ford and he's the worst person, that's not going to appeal to most people because most people don't see it that way.
I mean, I know when you say that he went against the teachers union and education unions, Stephen Lecce, he won with a bigger margin this year, last year. So the education minister, people will say, oh, he was right.
Well, the education workers dispute actually came about, though, after the last provincial election. So it was right away they were threatening the notwithstanding clause, and then they had to back down. Why? Because they realized it was so deeply unpopular. And I think that's maybe one difference between this Conservative government and other governments, whether it's Jason Kenney in Alberta or certainly the past federal Conservative government under Stephen Harper, is this government not overly competent. They do make mistakes. When they really realize that one of their mistakes and decisions is unpopular, sometimes they walk it back and they apologize. Look, I think that should be regarded as a good thing. I just think they should do it much less and they should make better decisions from the get-go. And on the big challenges of the day. So we can talk about education workers and the sort of fight they pick there. I do think when you look at nurses, when you look at PSWs, when you look at the healthcare human resource challenge, when you look at the fact all child, I was just at a meeting on childcare. YMCA has over 30,000 childcare spaces. Less than half of them are in use because they don't have the workers. They don't have the early childhood educators. And why? Because people aren't being paid enough. The conditions aren't great. And we don't have enough people coming through the education system. So on all fronts, on these big challenges, I just think, what do we want out of politics? And do we want this status quo? Or do we want to see really a serious government that wants to tackle these big challenges in a more serious way? Do we want a government that is going to say, oh, in advance of election, right before the election, the month before, we're going to make things a little bit cheaper for you on your license plate? Or do we want a government that's going to say, look, for your kids in schools, we want excellence in education and we want the best for your kids, and we're going to invest in the school system to make sure the school is best for your kids. And I think the sense of delivering the best we can in politics has taken a back seat with this government, and they're just trying to make as many people happy with small little trinkets at times, and that's no way to build the best we can.
So what is your plan to reestablish, say, your party's connection with the voters? I mean, it'll be a tough job.
Yeah, so it can be. I mean, one thing is to travel everywhere. So I've gone to all across the GTA, obviously. I've gone to Sudbury. I'm going to North Bay next week. I did a northern tour of Kenora, Sioux-Lachlan, and Dryden. I've been to Niagara and Hamilton and Kitchener-Waterloo and Windsor and all across the province. So that's really important, just meeting people where they're at. I think it's really important that we've got to be able to connect with people where they're at too. And look, I can tell you that I am a lawyer. I studied politics at Queen's and at Oxford, and I've been in politics for 7.5 years, and I take debate very seriously, and I really want our politics to be about ideas. It's also very important that we relate to one another, and we can meet with absolutely anyone from any background, hear their concerns, and act on their concerns. And so I do think that building a really strong foundational team in every community and taking every community seriously has to be a big part of this Ontario Liberal Party renewal. The second thing is we have to get back to basics. It can't be stop Doug Ford, stop Doug Ford. It really has to be, how do we define ourselves? And I think as Liberals, we are at our best when we have a strong economic agenda, we have fiscal discipline, we're serious, we're smart, we're competent, and we match that with compassion and fairness for those in need. And again, we deliver on those values through honesty and integrity. I would also say we have to tackle the big issues of the day for people. So whether it's in Northern Ontario or in Windsor, almost 2 million Ontarians don't have access to a family doctor or a family health team. That is unsustainable. When you look at mental health and addictions, too many people, including young people, are impacted by mental health considerations. We need to fix that. Too many seniors don't have access to home care, affordable home care. We need to fix that. When it comes to our housing challenge, if I talk to someone under the age of 35, they only want to talk about housing. And we are not building at a pace that we need to build to keep up with population growth. That is the fact of the matter. And we need to work with municipalities and push municipalities to open up space so buildings get built. And we need to get governments back in the game on social housing, building deeply affordable housing for those in need, because our downtowns are too affected by people experiencing homelessness, and we need to fix that. The Ontario Business Improvement Association, in their recent budget submission, they weren't just talking about helping businesses directly. They were saying, help us address the mental health and addictions challenge because it's impacting our downtowns. And I feel it in Windsor, I feel it in Thunder Bay, and we feel it here in the GTA. So there are so many issues that are big picture that we need to address. Protecting the environment for our kids, creating clean jobs today. There are so many big picture issues that matter no matter where you are in this province. And if we as a Liberal Party are not speaking to those issues repeatedly and if we don't have solutions to those issues in a serious way, we aren't going to rebuild this party the way we need to rebuild it.
True. Tell us about this one member, one vote system. I mean, that's being adopted by the Liberal Party now. Do the other parties have it?
Yeah, it's great. So we changed it at the convention in Hamilton, and the idea really is everyone now gets to directly participate and vote for the next leader. And so it's free to become a member. So everyone who is interested in participating, seeing our politics in a more serious way, and seeing better at Queen's Park, you can take out a membership for free. You're going to be able to vote directly for the next leader. It'll be a ranked ballot in all likelihood, and every riding is worth 100 points. So the riding of Mississauga Centre, or the riding of Beaches East York, or the riding of Windsor-Tecumseh, or the riding of Kenora. They are all treated equally, and they're all worth 100 points. So if you really want to make a huge difference, you sign up as a member yourself, but you also start to talk to your family and friends, and you start to say, can you get involved too? Because the way we rebuild this is by bringing as many people into politics as we can. And I believe the answer is participation. I need to convince you and convince everyone else all across the province that the answer is participation, and now is the time to participate.
And how is your relationship with the federal Liberals? They are falling behind in the polls, behind the Conservatives now.
Yes, it's not easy times. We are going through difficult economic times. Anyone who's seen their mortgage payments go up, and I have too, and in a serious way, and are struggling. Now, I do hear from parents who have their kids in childcare, and fees have been slashed in half, and they're very thankful. I hear from seniors who have continued to struggle with the cost of living. They're thankful for increases to OAS and GIS, but they're still struggling. So the cost of living challenge is wearing on us. There's no question. The economic downturn we're likely to experience in the coming months is going to be its own challenge as well. I don't think we necessarily combat some of the misinformation we see from Pierre Poilievre. So he says, for example, that a bill is going to censor the internet, and it obviously won't. And look, I'm not going to go to the bat for every single provision in that bill, but it doesn't censor the internet, and we let him get away with too many things, which also wears on us in some ways. In terms of my relationship with the federal Liberals, I have been a huge supporter. You mentioned independence. I've disagreed with the party more than any one of my colleagues over the last 7 years, but I've been a huge supporter of so many issues, and whether it's the Canada Child Benefit, whether it is the child care support, whether it's our strong environmental plan to create jobs, including cooperating with the Biden administration to deliver on that. There are so many different things that we've delivered on that I'm really supportive of. I would say my colleagues, you'll see Peter Fragaskatis in London, or Pam DeMoff in Oakville, North Burlington, Julie DeBruzen in Toronto Danforth. We're going to have a really good team of federal colleagues that join us and build this team provincially with us. And so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, for the people, I mean, these issues of carbon tax and there's a lot of ethics issues, and these sort of weigh on the Liberal Party. It's
Yeah, on the communication front, I think we struggle sometimes. So you take the carbon tax as an example. So we get attacked. Costs are increasing, and look, the cost of living crisis is real. Anyone who can't afford a home or has a home and has seen mortgage payments go up. I was really pushing in this federal budget to say we need to help people, both renters, but we need to help people on existing mortgages who are struggling with high mortgage payments, because we've never seen an increase in interest rates like this in ever. We've never seen the Bank of Canada go so hard on interest rates, and it's not fair to people, and where people are going to lose their homes, and we need to do something about that. And so this budget did deliver on delivering a code of conduct to protect existing mortgage owners. This budget did deliver on a series of affordability measures, including what we're calling the grocery rebate. But on the carbon tax, I think we've miscommunicated this completely.
right. Yeah.
The idea is very straightforward. If you have a price signal in the market, it changes people's behavior and it changes demand. That's a good thing. We want people to demand clean electricity, not dirty electricity. Now, you don't want people to be punished. So if you have someone in Scarborough or in Peel who is far enough away from their workplace, or and transit isn't accessible, or they're driving their kid to their baseball game, they need to drive in many cases. And if they need to do something, then punishing them for that choice is really hard, because there's no real choice. So the idea behind the carbon tax is we put a price in place so that people do change behavior where they can, because people are price sensitive. But two, we rebate the money back to people. And the PBO has a report that says that 75% of households get more money back or are made whole. But we have a debate right now, because the PBO had a second report and the Conservatives are banging us away on the head with it. What the PBO said is fiscally, people are better off. What they went on to say, though, is the carbon tax does have a very small negative impact on GDP over the coming years. What the PBO doesn't say, if we took no climate action, what would be the negative impact on our GDP? And the PBO hasn't said this, but every expert who's ever looked at this has said the costs of inaction to insurance, to our livelihoods, to our infrastructure, the costs of inaction are greater than the costs of action. And I think we've very poorly articulated that to Canadians. And we have to continue to say the carbon tax is going to increase costs up front, but you are going to get, if you are a middle income household, if you are a low income household, you are going to get more or the same money back on your climate action incentive on your taxes. And that is fact of the matter. On the ethics front, I actually agree with you, by the way. On the ethics front, it wears on governments when mistakes are made on the ethics side. And it's why I get frustrated, because I think there is nothing more noble than public service. My parents were both teachers, and I left a very lucrative job on Bay Street to pursue politics because I want to make a difference on behalf of other people. And anytime there's an ethics fault or an ethics lapse, it breaks people's trust and undercuts people's trust in our democracy. And in my view, trust is everything in our democracy. And so I am going to make trust, integrity, honesty the cornerstone of what I commit to and promise and deliver on in provincial politics.
People are also angry about this alignment with the NDP. You know that the Liberals lose their status there.
It's tough though. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting thinking through the cooperation there, because I actually think cooperation in politics is essential to getting things done. And it's not just with one party. I've worked with Michelle Rempel from the Conservative Party. I've worked with Bob Zimmer and Peter Kent from the Conservative Party to protect kids online. I've worked with Charlie Angus from the NDP. I've worked with Taylor Backrach from the NDP. So one should, if one is good at this, one should be able to build bridges and relationships with people of all parties. And people know this in their own family lives. My cousins from Sarnia are conservative minded. My dad voted probably NDP his entire life as a teacher since 2015. I'm pretty sure he's voted Liberal. And, so that idea of cooperation is really important. Having said that, I do think we have to better articulate what are we delivering for people as a result of this. And I think stability in politics, people don't want to have an election tomorrow. I don't think anyone wants a federal election. So stability does matter. That's what that deal gets us. It gets us stability. You know what else it gets us? It gets us dental care. We have a situation where we're now going to deliver any family earning $90,000 or less who doesn't have dental insurance is going to have dental insurance publicly provided. And we're expanding our social safety net. We're expanding our healthcare system. As a result of that deal, we have the stability we need to deliver on. I've got a bill coming to the industry committee to protect our kids online and to strengthen privacy protections as our kids grow up with the internet. We've got legislation that are small little things, but we've got legislation around consumer protections to reduce junk fees. We've got measures in place to advance economic growth with incentives to create the jobs that we're going to need. And we see investments coming into St. Thomas. We see investments coming into the Windsor area, and certainly critical minerals in the north is going to be essential. So I do think that cooperation agreement. I understand sometimes people's frustration. They go, well, if I voted Liberal, why am I getting this deal with the NDP?
And they take the credit for everything the good that the Liberals do.
At the same time, I think the answer back is to say, we are not only delivering on the agenda we promise Canadians as Liberals, and this deal gives us the stability to deliver on that agenda that you voted for if you voted Liberal. It also makes sure that we don't play politics in Parliament so much. We don't waste time. We're efficient with our time in Ottawa, which is, I'll tell you, after 7.5 years, is very important. And I think the other thing to say is, are some things getting done that we didn't promise? Yeah, dental care. And that's a good thing. And a number of us as Liberals have been interested in the idea and have been talking about it. And now there's an opportunity to fulfill it. And we shouldn't shy away from cooperation. I think the only thing we would never want to see is if we were ever in a situation where the NDP or the Conservatives of the Bloc, who had whatever party had the balance of power, and they said to us, you have to do this or you were going to make the government fall. And if it was something we didn't agree with, then we should let the government fall, because we can't compromise our principles. But if it's a matter of a good idea from across the aisle and that we didn't have in our own platform, we get to deliver 99% of our platform and then do 1% that another party wants to do, then great, let's do it.
I know, but this NDP is not the NDP of Tommy Douglas or Ed Broadbent or even Jack Layton. This is a totally different NDP. And I don't
well, it's a good point. There's not a substantive policy debate that we have at times in Parliament, including whether it's driven by the NDP or whether it's driven by the Conservatives. But I do think there's a real opportunity. I think dental care probably is the best example. There is a real opportunity to say, let's work across the aisle. Let's find here. I'll give a few examples. So when it came to our rapid housing initiative to deliver, and this is something we promised as Liberals, to deliver new funds to build homes quickly to help people exit homelessness and shelter systems and have a home to call their own. And we've built many homes all across this province and all across this country with federal funding. We were able to have the stability in government to do that because we had to deal with the NDP. But they also supported that initiative. We had a situation where we needed to deliver a huge bilateral health accord with provinces and expand healthcare. And we had our list of priorities: access to primary care, mental health, home care, better data collection. We were able to have the stability to have a Liberal government. No one else is in the government, a Liberal government, cooperate, coordinate with provinces, deliver on these bilateral health accords. It's going to improve our healthcare system. And we were only able to do that because we had the stability in Parliament as a result of that cooperation agreement. So I do think it's important to remind people we are delivering on a Liberal agenda, and the only real piece of the puzzle that wasn't ours to begin with was dental care. And I think actually that's a good compromise. If we get dental care for people who are earning under $90,000, and that's the compromise to get stability in our Parliament, that's good for everyone.
What do the 7 Liberal MPPs think of you running for the leadership?
Well, I have a good relationship with many of them. I don't know all of them too well because I haven't obviously worked alongside them just yet. I'm looking forward to seeing Mitzi run for mayor, and we'll see how that goes. Mary Margaret, I have a very good relationship with. So in Beaches East York, we have a very strong political organization, and we encouraged Mary Margaret to run for the nomination. I had worked with her when she was a city councillor before. She's great, and so she was successful in the nomination. We helped her in the general, and we were able to flip one of the seats. Actually, it was NDP before. We flipped it to Liberal this past election, despite it being a really hard election otherwise. And so I have a very good relationship with Mary Margaret. I've got a very good relationship with Adil, and Ted are on the road with me at times. And so I have a good relationship with them. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where this is going to be a competitive leadership race, but it's also going to be collaborative in many ways, because where the party is, we are in a deep third place, and we need to all be pulling in the same direction. And there's a recognition that when this is done, we all need to work together.
When is the vote due?
We don't know exactly. My best guess would be that the race happens before the end of the year, but not sure. So what we are gearing up for is launching, hopefully, if we get to a place where we're ready, sometime next month, and then we'd be in a place to hopefully see the race come to conclusion by October, November, and then we can hit the ground running. And it's really important. I honestly feel there is no time to waste. We have a party that is in desperate need of renewal, in desperate need of new blood and new membership, and we need to start yesterday getting this done. And so the faster we have a race, the better, and the faster we have a leader that can really seize the moment, across the province as a leader, and rebuild the team through nominations. I think it's essential we get to work right away.
I mean, a strong democracy needs a good, strong opposition, which I don't think that it exists in Ontario at the moment.
No, and this is where this is where you and I, when your comments around the NDP, this is where I feel it acutely. There are many shared values that I would have when it comes to I want strong climate action, and to not only deliver a better, cleaner planet for our kids, but also create jobs today. I want more affordability in housing. I want to end chronic homelessness. I want to save lives in the opioid crisis. They're all things that if I sat down with colleagues from the NDP, we would agree with. But then they would present a proposal, and I would look at it and I would say, this is not well thought through. The math doesn't add up. The homework's not been done in a fulsome way. So we might have shared values on some things. We don't agree on everything, but we might have shared values on some things. But I don't see the seriousness of a plan and that is required to do this work. And similarly, when we look at the opposition, I don't see, and I say this about at the federal level, but I think it applies at the provincial level right now. They have been in opposition now for a long time, since 2018, and they have not provided the credible, serious opposition that this province deserves. Not at all. They've been the invisible opposition, and we need a serious, credible opposition that's going to take Ford to task, not in a personal facing way, but to say, you're not doing enough. Here are the issues that matter to Ontarians, and here's what you need to be doing. You're not doing it, and step aside. We're ready to get it done.
You now have 3 years to prepare the ground for the comeback, rather.
Yes, exactly. And it's exhausting, but it's also energizing because there are many people who feel the same way that I do, which is now is the time to get involved. There's a moment here to build something, to renew our politics, to frankly do politics differently, to say we can make our politics about ideas, we can make it we can deliver positive politics in a serious way. And I can point to now a track record of 7.5 years of not always reciting the same talking points, not always voting exactly the way I was told to vote. I have a track record of, I think, in real integrity. I have a track record of delivering change. I've helped to shape the government's agenda on many different issues along the way. And I have a track record of really building a serious political organization. If we can do across the province what we've done in Beaches East York, we are going to be very successful, and we just need to put the work in. And there's no substitute for that hard work. So yeah, I really appreciate you letting me share some of my ideas.
Thanks a lot, MP Nate. And hi, we have been listening to MP Nate, who is now going to fight for the Liberal Party leadership in Ontario. And we wish you all the best, MP Nate.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
It'll be a tough fight, but I think with your strength, you can do it.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, MP Nate.